Hi, this is Matt Taylor Law. I am here with Cedric Phillips on the Press Play podcast. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about his experience as not only a Magic the Gathering player, but a long career in broadcasting, and a little bit about collegiate Magic the Gathering as a future for collegiate gaming. So, Cedric Phillips, would you please do the honors of introducing yourself?
I would be more than happy to. We can say maybe Magic the Gathering professional, which means more in 2019 than it did in 2009 when I was a professional player. Back then, I would call myself a player. Now it's like a professional because all the things I do in my work life on my day to day are related to Magic the Gathering. But my name is Cedric Phillips. Let's see where to begin. I am the online content coordinator for StarCityGames.com, the world's largest Magic the Gathering store. I am the voice of the SCG Tour, which is a very creative way of saying I am the lead broadcaster for a tour that has Magic tournaments all around the United States domestically. This year we are doing, off the top of my head, 12 plus 10, 22, 25 tournaments, where before we've done upwards of 30 to 36 in a calendar year. So those are two of my main responsibilities with that company. And then I also am the North American marketing manager for a company called Hio America, who things underneath their umbrella that people might be familiar with, if you're familiar with gaming, is the product supply company Ultimate Guard and the dice company Okie Dokie Dice. So Magic is my entire life, and that's why I'm a Magic professional and not a Magic player.
That makes a lot of sense. And you have your own podcast as well, right? Would you like to plug it in here?
Sure. I mean, I'm never going to say no to a plug. I do some other things on the side because I do enjoy working and creating content. So I do have my own podcast that I've had for, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, 6 years now. It was initially called Ced Talks, which was a play on TED Talks. It is now being rebranded as the Cedric A. Phillips podcast. I also do some streaming on twitch.tv/Cedric A. Phillips. And I am now going to be releasing vlogs on my YouTube channel. So it's all content, and that's all Magic related.
That's awesome. I can't wait to watch some of it. So let's start this interview. So what was it like to be a Magic Pro player, as you said in 2009, and be on the Pro Tour and get to travel to play your game?
It's super cool. And that's the easiest way to explain it. Now, was it hard work and a lot of hours and, a lot of headaches and a lot of travel sometimes? Absolutely. To be a professional player at any esport or any traditional sport is it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of different things. On the whole, was it a lot of fun? Absolutely. I had a blast being a professional player, a gold level pro, as they called it back then in 2009 and 2010. I had played in a handful of pro tours leading up to that before I actually secured my gold level status. But being a pro in Magic or any other esport, as I mentioned, it's kind of a wild experience. You're playing in these tournaments that are in different areas of the world, not just the United States, but I've been to Canada, I've been to Japan, I've been to Italy, all over Europe. I've seen a lot of places I didn't expect to see when I started playing this game when I was 11, 12 years old. So if you had told younger version of me that I'd been a professional player and got to go to Rome to play in the World Championships for Magic in 2010, I would have told you you're crazy. So it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of work that goes into that, and I really do remember those days quite fondly.
So what was the day that you can you remember the day that you decided that you had I don't want to say had enough of being a pro player, because you still put up results, and I'm always still a fan of watching you whenever you enter a tournament. But what made you decide to go into broadcasting?
I wouldn't say there was. I would say there's a weird little series of events. So there was a pro tour that I played in Amsterdam at the back end of 2010 that I did rather poorly in, and it was very frustrating because I really needed to do well in that tournament, and I was really living. Some people will say paycheck to paycheck. I was living tournament to tournament, so every tournament that I would cash was my paycheck, and if I did not cash a tournament, we were in some trouble. I didn't do well in that tournament. I actually had to have a friend stake me to even be able to afford the travel to go to that tournament. Did quite poorly in the tournament, as I mentioned. And it was that point that I reconsidered, is this something that I should be doing with my life at that time, 23? And, I was in college and finishing college, and you always are told, you finish college, go get a real job in quotes and do something like that. So I decided to do that. Stopped playing Magic, moved to Seattle, Washington, got some serving jobs in various restaurants, got some advertising jobs, sold some life insurance, so on and so forth. And it was actually that last job, selling life insurance, that went so poorly for me that I decided, the one thing that I really like to do that I don't really do much anymore is play Magic. And I went back to playing in PTQs and various other tournaments that qualify you for the Pro Tour, and playing in Grand Prix and things like that, and starting to put up results again and starting to make a little bit of money, and ultimately was actually enjoying myself. And so once I started doing that again and was streaming on Twitch, I got noticed by the people over at Star City Games, who I already had a really good relationship with. And, they were doing the SCG Tour in its infancy. I was pretty loud about the fact that I didn't think it was being done particularly well, which for the people who are listening, I wouldn't recommend maybe bashing the company that you want to work for on social media to try to get a job with them, but it worked for me. I did make a lot of salient points. I will say my method of communication could have maybe been a little bit better, but here I am. They gave me an opportunity to do a show back in June 2012 in Columbus, Ohio. The show went well. They called me after the show and asked if I wanted to do more shows. And fast forward to April 2019, I'm doing broadcasting, which I went to school for restaurant management. This isn't what I thought I would be doing.
That's a really funny backstory of how you got here. I actually just did an interview with a Rainbow Six caster who had a really similar story of, I was watching this video game and I didn't like how they were talking about it, so I wrote about it on Twitter, and I got a DM where it said, "What do you think we can do better?" And he ended up getting a job through there. So, I mean, I don't recommend it to anyone to talk badly about a company that you want to get hired for, as you said, but sometimes making some good recommendations can show an employer how smart you might actually be, or how well of a fit you might be at their company. So I like that a lot.
It was what I would say not a traditional way to go about getting a job. I don't even recommend anybody else, but I was also kind of playing with house money as a term, the term that people know. Like, I didn't really have anything to lose. Like, I'm a pretty vocal person. If anyone follows me or looks up my Twitter, they'll know that I'm not really one to shy away from controversy, or I'm going to say what I feel like should be said. And in this instance, it wasn't anything personal, but I care about Magic a lot. I did then, I still do now. I thought they could be doing things a lot better. I don't think it was really anybody's fault. These were people who weren't experienced with broadcasting or sports media or sports journalism or any of that stuff, which is what this is that we do on the SCG Tour. And I've been following sports my entire life, and professional wrestling my entire life, and then you mix in the two a little bit, you'll notice a lot of elements of that in what we do on the SCG Tour. And I felt I was the right person to kind of bring that to the equation, and fortunately they agreed.
Right. So there are two collegiate organizations, NACE and AVGL, that are actually hiring broadcasters for their respective video games. And what did a company like Star City or Wizards look for when you were applying to be a broadcaster? What do you think a traditional route would be, and what should a college student try to focus on? Maybe making a highlight reel or whatever you may think. What tips would you have for them applying to a position like the one that you're in right now?
Well, my route was different. So back in 2012. These things were very much in their infancy. Esports wasn't really that big of a thing. What actually kind of really got me enthused about esports and commentary of this stuff was, seeing where League of Legends was going at that time, and thinking that Magic could try to get there. And, it's taken a long time to even get into the conversation of being a real esport, because Magic is a tabletop game. But my route to being a broadcaster was, as I mentioned, kind of being vocal on social media and all this other stuff. And as far as what they were looking for, I mean, that's a great question. At the end of the day, what I ended up bringing to the table, besides being passionate about it, is I know a lot about Magic, because I had played it every day, legitimately every single day, for about 7 years. So as far as, card knowledge and player knowledge and all these other things that matter in the game, because Magic is so complex, I have all that stuff in my brain. I couldn't tell you my blood type, but I can tell you the text on a card or the flavor text on a card or the casting cost on a card. So that's just kind of all up here in my head. So being able to bring that to the table is certainly beneficial for what I was doing back when I got hired initially. As far as nowadays, I think if you can go to school for broadcasting or sports journalism or something like that, I think you almost certainly should. Maybe something that involves photography or videography or something like that, because all of these are a huge aspect to esports for framing the narrative and what things need to look like to put on a good show as far as production is concerned. If you want to work in the broadcasting aspect of things, you obviously have to speak well. I've taken speech classes before to be able to learn how to speak slowly and be able to enunciate the things that need some emphasis on the right syllable and things like that. So you have to definitely train yourself to speak a certain way. I've picked up a lot of that from a lot of the broadcasting that I have watched of numerous sports. When you're trying to build to a moment, you can pull a lot of things away from golf with that, especially if the game is a little bit slower. If the game is a lot more fast paced, you can check out Shoutcasting or StarCraft or League of Legends. Or there are times when football is a fast paced game. Baseball is a very slow paced game where you need to be able to fill in kind of the time in the air so there's not dead air with stories and various other things. So, there's a lot that you can pull from college as far as the kind of classes that you take. And what you're trying to do, depending on what area you want to work in esports. Again, if it's going to be broadcasting, if it's going to be videography, behind the scenes, production, so on and so forth. But I always love to take real life examples of things that are happening. After this call, I'm going to turn on the NBA playoffs because not only do I love the NBA, but I want to hear the call from Mike Breen and Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy and how they're going to do their job for the day, and maybe Doris Burke, who's excellent at what she does. And then after that, I'm going to watch Monday Night Raw so I can hear Michael Cole and Corey Graves and Renee do their thing, which is a different product, but it all kind of flows into what I do for a living, which is calling action and making it seem interesting in a game that is somewhat slow and at times is not interesting, but it's my job to make it seem as though it is. So there's a lot of things and inspiration you can draw from to get yourself to be better at this type of thing.
Wow, that was everything and more that I needed to hear. I was really happy that you picked out the ideas of classes and like speech classes and enunciation, because that's stuff we offer here at Maryville, and it's a little bit of what I'm trying to do with this podcast is persuading people to go to school instead of trying to work on their own, because you can learn a lot of necessary skills into the workforce through going to college. But you also mentioned that Magic was transitioning into esports. Could you see a collegiate Magic the Gathering, almost sort of like I don't want to say a junior varsity to professional esports, but like a developmental league almost, for a new place for professional organizations to scout out players? We saw TSM pick up Numat the Mummy, and I think that should or will end up becoming the trend as Magic transitions into esports. So I guess my question is, do you think people going to college can use the fact that they are attending college to try to build up their resume towards esports while they're in college? So starting a collegiate league, starting collegiate broadcasting, and try to prove to a company before they graduate that they have all the necessary skills that they've learned in those classes that we mentioned earlier.
I don't see why not. Outside of jumping over the hurdles of trying to convince people that this is a thing that should be presented and be available at a school, I don't really see why not. I know that there are schools out there that have things like this already involved with League of Legends, and like League of Legends scholarships and everything like that. It's funny. There's a school, I want to say it's Murray State, but I might be wrong. Maybe it's Moorhead University. There's a school that starts with an M that was like the first one to kind of offer this sort of thing. And I know there's leagues for League of Legends and everything else out there as, esports continues to legitimize itself over, the next handful of years. One thing you're going to learn about esports over time is that, look, whether people think that this is a legitimate thing or not, is playing League of Legends, is that a sport? How do you even define what a sport is? What does the E mean in front of esport outside of electronic, all this other stuff? The reality is this. this is a thing, and it's going to continue to be a thing because people are passionate about it, and there's a lot of money in it. Business for esports right now is really good. And there are a lot of people that are investing in esports teams like Rick Fox, and there are documentaries, and Daryl Morey, who is the general manager of the Houston Rockets, and also runs the Sloan Conference every year in Boston, Massachusetts, that I was fortunate enough to attend this year, the MIT Sloan Conference for analytics. He's involved with esports, and there are countless other people. Paul George has an esports team, and he's a professional basketball player for the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are in the playoffs this year, and he's a great player. This is a thing that's going to continue to rise. It's not going anywhere. And it shouldn't, if this is popular in what people enjoy, by all means. So I think as this continues to legitimize itself through the people that are getting involved with it and these big cash prizes and these arenas that are selling out for League of Legends, and there's gigantic tournaments and everything else like that, yeah, I think you're going to see more and more people saying, hey, well, you see it for League of Legends, why can't we do it for Magic? Why can't we do it for this game? Why can't we do it for that game? And eventually the answer is going to be, I don't know, why can't you? Like, I can't claim to know the history of incorporating more traditional sports into schools, but I imagine at some point, maybe basketball was the first one, and then someone said, well, I don't know, swimming's a thing? Can't we have a swim team? Or can we have a swimming league? Or tennis is a thing? Or pool is a thing? Or whatever, some of maybe the lesser games, and they're like, yeah, sure. I don't see why not. And I think that's going to end up happening with esports as well, because esports is so wildly popular, and as we become more technologically savvy as a world, and people are playing more and more games on their computers or their tablets or their iPhones. Look, if this Magic boom continues happening with Arena, I think everything is on the table as far as what can happen. And the only thing that's going to stop that sort of thing from happening as Magic continues to get bigger is people just kind of being closed-minded to the idea that this is a way that someone can spend their life. Because it's not, playing Magic for a living is, in quotes, not a real job, but a lot of people are doing just fine. So we'll see where things continue to go. But yeah, I think it's possible, because I think anything's possible.
Thank you. That was way more information than I could have ever dreamed would have came out of this interview. I think any parent who's worried about enrolling their child, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Enrolling their child in an esports program at a college might feel a little bit more comfortable after listening to some of the words you've said on the podcast. Sorry, I don't know why this is really difficult for me to come out of my mouth today. But for the players, can you tell us a feels good moment, a time in either your broadcasting or playing history that really sticks to mind, that really made it all worth it for you?
I have a ton of moments I can go over as a player, for me, as a player, my most important moment was, I've made top 8 of a pro tour in Kyoto, Japan, back in 2009, which is kind of my crowning achievement on my professional playing career. But there was also a tournament that I played in at the end of 2009 in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was the last tournament of the year before the World Championships, and I needed to make top 32 of that tournament, which is actually a pretty hard thing to do in order to qualify for Worlds in Rome the next weekend. And I ended up winning my very last match of the weekend to do so. Had I lost, I would not have accomplished this. I won, so I did, which means I got to go to Rome the next weekend and play in the World Championships, where I placed in the top 100 players, which was really, really cool. And that also qualified me for the following 4 pro tours the next year, where I got my gold level pro status, which was what it was called back then. So I've had some great moments during my playing career. During my broadcasting career, there are moments that do stick out, but ultimately, one thing that I do realize as a broadcaster of Magic tournaments for now going I'm almost to my 7-year anniversary now, which is crazy to think about, only 2 months away, is that any game that I broadcast or any game that any of my colleagues broadcast, the first thing that most people are going to do is when we upload the videos to Twitch and YouTube, they're going to go back and they're going to watch them. And they want to know, how the game went and how we saw the game and what we had to say. And so with that in mind, there's a lot of responsibility there as a commentator and someone putting on a show and presenting it to a worldwide audience to not be a jerk, to do your job well, because it matters to people. And it may matter to a lot of people. It may matter to a few people, but I know that it certainly matters to the 2 people that were playing the game underneath the lights for the world to see. And so those are the moments that stick out to me the most, which is, I'm trying to do Magic a lot of justice. because I love the game and I think it's the best game in the world. But at the same time, I'm also trying to create memories and moments for the people that are in those feature matches that we do have, and for the people that are watching at home or may go watch that at some point. You don't know how many times someone is going to watch a video of themselves playing Magic, and so you do want to be able to present it as something that does matter to that person, because ultimately it does. And I think that's the thing that I like about my job the most is a lot of the people that we have in the feature match area, there's definitely a lot of them that do this for a living or do this a lot and want to make this what they do for a living. But there are also plenty of people that are just like, hey, this tournament's in my hometown. I wanted to play and I'm having a good tournament. And now I'm paired against someone who takes this maybe way more seriously than I do. And if they win that match and you put on a good commentary for that match, that might make their entire day, week, month, year. You don't know. So that's the enjoyment that I get out of my job the most, is creating moments that will be lasting for a long time for a card game that, again, I didn't think I'd be doing this with my life, but here I am doing it and trying to give back to it as best I can.
Thank you, Cedric. Having you on Press Play's podcast has been an absolute pleasure. I just want to thank all the viewers who have watched this and have come out. I hope any parents that have watched this feel a little more comfortable about their child going off to school on something that you might not have thought was a potential career, but we're trying to prove to you here that it really is. I hope you'll tune into the next episode with Clyde Bott, who is our support player for our League of Legends Championship team, and hear a little bit more about what it's like to actually compete in esports. But thank you all for tuning in. Thank you again, Cedric, for coming on. I hope you have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.